As they followed after Han, there was a giant temple that could be seen. All the students and adventurers began talking amongst themselves, trying to understand why there was such a thing in this hellhole of a place. Interesting. I wonder if this belonged to the ones before or was created for the demons, Han wondered to himself. The closer they approached the temple, the more details could be seen, such as how ancient it appeared. This place looks very old, Ha-Yun murmured. Several students close by nodded at her words. I wonder who made this, Celine asked. What is this temple doing in the middle of nowhere? Han was mesmerized by the temple, appreciating the simple beauty it held. It was like going back and seeing the Parthenon back when it was completed. Compared to the Parthenon during the modern times, this place was in far better condition. There was definitely a mixture of seeing the Parthenon and Angkor Wat at the same time, with how much presence this place held. This place looks a lot older than the fallen city near the academy, but it's in better condition, Jim voiced his thoughts. Walking up to the temple, Han placed his hands on one of the massive stone blocks, feeling the worn and cold surface, which reinforced the surrounding mystery of this place. Was this where they lived, or was this where they worshipped their gods? Han wondered. Going up the stairway in the front, he reached the mammoth doors. Gah! These doors are extremely heavy, Han grunted, and managed to open them up. If it was any other people in their party, aside from his creations, he didn't think that they would have been able to get in. Did they only create this place for those like them? Entering the inner part of the temple, the only thing he could think was, what the hell is this place? The inside looked very organic, as if the walls should be moving. He looked behind him to see how everyone else was experiencing this, because this scene just seemed so abnormal. On the walls were spikes that seemed to grow out of the sides, making this place look like a mixture between a person's mouth and insides. What is that smell? Lily called out, as she held a hand over her nose, attempting to block out the smell. Smells like Jim's breath. Celine glanced over towards Jim, who was also covering his nose. Jim glared at Celine, and didn't even bother to try and retort to her claim. Chris patted Jim on the back supportively, understanding what was going through his mind. It does smell like the inside of an animal, Ha-Yun agreed with Celine indirectly. Celine snickered at Ha-Yun's comment. Ha-Yun blushed once she realized how it could be interpreted. She looked back at Jim and waved her hand in denial about agreeing that he smelled like the room. Everyone began to look around the temple, trying to figure out what this place was. After several hours had passed, Han felt a breeze coming out of the wall. Walking over to it, he noticed there seemed to be a hidden door. Finding it odd for there to be a randomly hidden door, he decided to investigate further. Opening the door revealed a long stairway going down. Entering this area, lights began to turn on and illuminate the path. Han, along with his creations, headed down the stairs to see what was at the bottom. It felt like it continued forever, but eventually they arrived at another doorway. This one had a symbol of a hand on the center of the doorway. Interesting that they only placed this on here, Han said out loud. Placing his hand on top of the symbol caused it to glow. Welcome, brother, a voice called out from nowhere. The door then lifted towards the ceiling, and a room was revealed. The room looked very much like a laboratory. There was various ancient-looking tools and equipment, along with stone tables. On several of the tables, there was dissected monsters. Master, It appears that whoever was using this room was investigating the monsters found on this moon and the planet, Queen hypothesized. Next to the table appeared to be notes. Looking closer, they had drawings of the creatures. The language written out was unfamiliar to him, so he passed his hand over them, and they shifted into something he could read. Tests show that these creatures, which appeared out of nowhere, have a very rapid growth phase. They can both breed from different genders, but if forced, they can produce an offspring without the need of an opposite gender to inseminate them. My brothers have discussed what we should do with these creatures, but due to our weakened powers, we are unable to wipe them out. The best thing we can do is limit them. After much discussion, I was able to offer a potential solution. As it is now, if we leave these creatures unchecked, they will head towards the new home we created. All life on there will be destroyed in a decade or more. So I offered to create a series of mazes and structures deep inside of this moon. The creatures will be mostly contained, not including those that will naturally exist outside. We will give our children the ability to control this mechanism. I have created this place to be able to experiment more on these creatures and built a smaller version to test out whether it will work. Our children will need to lead the other beings. I hope that they will be able to provide help and comfort. I wish we did not have to do this, but we are out of options. Even now, I feel that my power is barely half what it was. I do not regret creating this new world, though I wish I could have joined the others. My work must continue. I wonder if this individual was one of the ones before, Brittany asked. It appears that this is the case, Han agreed. He could only imagine how lonely this life was. Master, Anaklis shouted. Running over to where she was, Han saw a series of numbers displayed on a large screen. What is this? Han wondered. Just looking at the numbers, there were a lot of zeros, but at the far right were numbers going in a descending order. It looks like it is counting down, but to what? Knowing that there wasn't enough time to warn the others, Han quickly covered everyone in a powerful shield. When something counts down, there was usually an undesirable outcome that would emerge. Signal has been received to initiate purging of the Varj. Do you wish to allow the testing facility to follow with the purging? An old voice called out. What testing facility? Han asked the voice. This testing facility was designed to test out the function of the purging of the Varj, to allow those on a new home world a chance to survive while containing the Varj. Due to the current number of Varj contained inside, the testing facility does not need to join in. Do you wish to allow the Varj contained inside to be purged? The voice explained. Trying to think of something quickly, he shouted, No, I do not wish that. Unbothered by his tone of voice, the voice said, The testing facility will continue to contain the Varj. Based on the current rate of population growth, the testing facility will be automatically set to participate in the purge to reduce virtue levels. What is the Varj? Han asked the voice. The Varj is an organism that was discovered thousands of years ago. These beings landed on the prior homeworld. Based on how aggressive they were, these creatures were deemed too dangerous. Due to the available resources, termination was found to be impossible. The Varj appear to be very adaptive, so a failure to wipe them out would only lead to them growing stronger. This testing facility was designed to test out a new method, where the majority of the Varj would be contained and purged around every decade. This will allow the life forms on the newly created home world to survive with the assistance of the children. It explained to them in a clear and unhurried fashion. A shaking of the ground and rumbling noise alerted all of them that something was happening. Han quickly ran back the way he came. Upon exiting the hidden entrance, he saw everyone panicking from the quake and the loud noise. Where have you been? While we were looking for you, the ground began to shake, and a rumbling noise could be heard. We do not know what is going on. Everyone is frightened. Ha-Yun rushed up to Han, explaining everything that was happening while he was gone. Wait here, he told Ha-Yun before rushing out of the temple. Ha-Yun ignored his advice and was right behind him. Several of the students and adventurers followed him. Outside of the temple, everyone saw thick streams of monsters rushing forward, away from the temple. There were a wide variety of them, some of them that no one recognized. Are those all monsters? Jim cried out. What is that thing? Lily pointed at a large monster that seemed to just be tentacles and legs. There's another one, Chris pointed at a giant monster, whose head appeared to be a massive pyramid of spikes. Out of its shoulders were also giant spikes, making it seem like something out of a person's nightmare. What happens if that thing comes over here? A female student wondered, terror marking her face. It looks like they're heading away from us, Han observed. Where do you think they're going? Ha-Yun asked. Han didn't bother to answer her question, as he just watched the river of monsters pass by them. Something is appearing, Celestial cried out, pointing off in the distance to what seemed like a giant bubble. Shifting his focus towards the bubble, he concentrated on it, and his vision improved. As he got a closer view, Han realized what that bubble was. They are climbing over one another. That thing is just a massive mountain of monsters, he spoke in an odd voice. What did you say? Ha-Yun's voice went up an octave after hearing such a scary thing coming out of Han's mouth. Are you saying that giant thing is all monsters? Celine shouted at Han. What are you talking about? Why would they do that? Celine had difficulty wrapping her mind around such a thing. All around them, people were clamoring after hearing Han's declaration. The bubble was quite a distance away, so being able to see it and realizing that it was just monsters climbing on top of other monsters was a terrifying image. After several hours had passed and the initial shock had worn down, everyone stared at the bubble that seemed to stretch into the sky. It was larger than any mountain that they had ever seen. The river of monsters didn't appear to be settling down anytime soon, and instead seemed to have become wider. They felt like the temple was a tiny island in a massive deadly river. What is it doing now? Ha-Yun asked to no one in particular, after noticing that the giant mound was shaking. The mound appeared to pulsate and move around before it finally exploded at the top. A bubble seemed to rise into the sky and get smaller. I know what this is now, Han simply stated. This caused many around him to look at him, to listen to what he had to say. If you realize that this is one of the moons of Elytran, I think you'll understand too. Hearing what Han said, there were many who were confused. They had entered into the prison that the demons were trapped in, and now Han was talking about one of the moons of Elytran? This cannot be! Ha-Yun covered her mouth, her voice quivering. Han looked at her and nodded his head. No, I refuse to believe it! She shook her head, trying to rid herself of the thought. What? Celine asked, trying to understand what was happening. There were several screams in the background, as more people understood the significance of the mound of monsters. People began to sob in anguish, thinking about what was about to happen. Seeing that Celine still didn't understand what was happening, Han said softly, "That is the overflow."